Are you ready, kids? I said, are you ready, kids?
I don't see any kids here.
Yeah, there's no kids here.
Oh, damn it.
A children at heart. Aye, Exan.
I'm one of those mythical, myth fans of Nickelodeon that actually prefers Avatar and Legend of Korra over silly stuff like SpongeBob. So, no, I'm
You
not
can
ready.
like both. I like both.
Well, I don't.
Eat me.
I really don't care for SpongeBob SquarePants. I know that's heresy, but I don't. And I'm not that big a fan of Ren and Stimpy either, for the record.
Well, I can see why people don't like Ren and Stimpy, and I love the Out of Bounds video where it's the opening title of the sequence and it's just a very, very long screen.
This game, if you look up, like, the programming and how the stuff works...
Oh, it's a weird mess.
weird game. But anyway, this is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, which came out in 2004, I think. Fun fact: the team that made the SpongeBob game before this, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, the game was so bad that team went out of business. So, yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So this game is one of probably the most beloved licensed game from the GameCube PS2 era. This is like Turtles in Time for late 90s, early 2000s kids, basically. So it pulls a lot of inspiration from, namely Super Mario 64 and Spyro, I've actually noticed the most. But this game, I played this so much when I was younger. I love this game to death.
I've only recently played. Well, recently it was like
that was like
years ago.
4 years ago, Johnny.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, no, I probably forgot the timestamp, but yeah, I was donated this game by a fan and ended up playing it, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. I don't think it does much different than what Mario 64 and the like did, but
no,
it's still no, but not that I'm expecting every game to do their own thing, but what SpongeBob does well, it does well enough.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed my time with the game.
I feel like expectations are always different / lower whenever it's a licensed product.
Well, with licensed games, yes.
I'm not a big fan of SpongeBob or straight up comedy stuff in general. Like Jim Carrey is about the
that
only
explains
the only
so
thing
much.
that I can go for strictly for comedy. But even I can tell, like, even just from this cutscene, this is a quality product,
Yeah.
It was made with, I don't want to say love, because that's presuming a bit too much about the intentions of the developers. They could have gone through this like completely dead-eyed with disinterest in what they were making, but god damn, they did it right.
Yeah, because that does happen. The first example I can think of is Bubsy, where I believe it was Bubsy 2, where developers stabbed plush dolls of Bubsy with pencils and scissors in order to take out their frustration. So that
The voodoo magic isn't working.
Magic Conch Shell, will I ever be developing a not licensed game?
No.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, another nice touch that a licensed game usually has to try to get right to be any level appealing is they got the vast majority of the cast. Not everyone, but most of them.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Krabs is the exception.
Mr. Krabs and Mermaid Man are the only two characters who are not voiced by the original cast. Which is weird,
is
though,
so
because
odd.
Clancy
'Cause
Brown did the first SpongeBob game and the one after that, but not this one. So,
what was the first SpongeBob game?
Revenge of the Flying Dutch. Well, that's not the
that
first
explains it.
SpongeBob game, the first console one.
It might just be that Clancy Brown was busy with another project. That happens sometimes,
Yeah, that
He might have
does
been
happen.
busy recording
Some-
Justice League Unlimited.
Sometimes
Yeah,
they
he's
do.
busy being Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes they do like weird workarounds for that kind of thing where a celebrity is busy with multiple products like Superman and his facial hair.
And let's be honest, SpongeBob was still a juggernaut at this point. It's like there are plenty of other times where I could voice Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, this was peak SpongeBob period.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
2003, 2004, right before
2003, 2004.
right before the movie came out. This game came out, so this was, I think, peak SpongeBob. Yeah, so so one minor thing I will say about this game, I love the dialogue, and these full-on cutscenes have a lot of charm, but unfortunately, since the majority of the cutscenes are your standard early PlayStation 2 platformer, standing, and then dialogue goes back and forth, between them kind of cutscenes. There's not as much of the very animated, high energy kind of comedy that happens in a
No.
lot of SpongeBob. It's a lot of people, like, I mean, a lot of the dialogue's witty, but it's not as, it doesn't feel as natural as like watching an episode of the show, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
To be fair, they probably couldn't have pulled that off until at least the PS3 era, without actually just animating cartoon scenes, and that would be quite a high budget proposition.
Yeah,
really.
they do. They have a few fully animated scenes like that, but really only for the beginning, end, and boss fights. There is a lot of that.
Oh, when I say animated, I mean like actual cartoon animation.
Oh yeah, that
like
would
the
be
show.
that would be nice. I think a couple of other licensed games have done that in more recent years, but
Yeah, and there were other games that did similar things, although not necessarily in the West. Like I'm thinking of the Full Metal Alchemist games and how they had anime cutscenes from time to time, which was pretty cool. Even though it was a bit weird to hear Roy Mustang not voiced by Roy Mustang.
Yeah. So the beginning of the game, this basic tutorial is inside SpongeBob's house where they teach you the very, very basic stuff. Because this is a SpongeBob game, the target demographic, I'd say, is even younger than Mario. So they got to tell you which button jumps, which button does the spin attack.
Well,
so
you know,
on
at
and
least
so
they're
forth.
doing it in visually interesting goddamn ways, like actually modeling a three-dimensional revolving version of the button, which is nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Usually it's a 2D object that looks all pixely and gross.
Yeah, this, as you can see by the rotating buttons, this is the GameCube version. There was a version for all three consoles. The Xbox version is generally considered to be the best one because it has better graphics, better load times. The PS2 version, I think, has the longest load times. I don't know anything about like frame rates or anything like that. Between
The shadows are probably circles in that version.
No. I played and reviewed the PS2 version, and besides the longer load times, the game itself runs pretty smooth. Like the frame rate was still 60 frames per second.
Okay.
And everything looked pretty well. I'd imagine that a game like this isn't terribly complicated.
Oh
but,
yeah,
you know,
I was halfway kidding. It was only as big a difference as it was in the case of Sonic Heroes because of how
Yeah.
fast things were.
Yeah. Usually, that's actually one thing that we haven't really seen since in the GameCube era is a time where all three consoles had roughly equal hardware power. That's probably never happening again.
Yeah.
So.
Although, on the subject of circular shadows, I'm noticing that only SpongeBob has
Ball?
a properly shaped
Ball?
shadow.
But
That's not how you land.
Well, you are underwater, so.
Good point. Well made.
Physics engines back in the day were a trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the other floating objects. Well, the floating coins have a sort of spinning shadow, which is nice. But the other floating objects, I saw they just had little circles under them.
Why does SpongeBob have a giant ball of the Google Chrome icon?
Google Chrome didn't even exist in 2004. That was like a late 2000s.
but Google did.
Yeah, but this
They
game
were planting the
this game
seeds.
does graphically look pretty nice for the era. It helps that it's, you know, a mid 2000s platformer as opposed to an early one. I thought I could break open that treasure chest. This game lies to me. But yeah, I think this game looks relatively well when you compare it to a couple of the other games. Like, I'd still say games like, the first thing that pops to my mind is something like Jack and Daxter, I think would probably look a little bit better. But I think that this looks about on par with, say, the better than the PS2 Spyros from the footage I've seen.
Yeah.
I'd say, honestly, in some ways it even looks better than, like, Mario Sunshine. So, you know, that's
Yeah.
all cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
The
but-
thing about Jack and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank is the developers really did set out to show off what the PS2 could do technically, whereas a lot of other games were designed and optimized for an idea of what the developers already knew they could do efficiently, so things tended to look a bit more plastic. If that makes sense. And in this case, we're also working with an art style that was not drawn for video game graphics at all. So adapting that to PS2 graphics was probably a challenge in itself before you even get to trying to be really fancy about it.
I do really like how well they matched the original art style, though. Everything looks basically like it could have popped out of the cartoon. The way
Yeah.
that SpongeBob looks is also, I appreciate it. They could have very easily just made a cube with textures for the holes, which they actually did
Minecraft
do
SpongeBob.
in Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. That game's awful. I might
Even
think-
if they had to work with stiff animations all the time, I'm noticing that they put a lot of work into the expressions.
Yeah,
which
they
is
did.
a good compromise, I'll say. Expression is something that I really do
It's a
associate
little
with
jarring
SpongeBob.
though that the characters don't give eye contact to each other. SpongeBob is clearly not even looking at plankton.
Yeah. It always
Yeah.
baffled me as a kid, though, that they got the voice actor for Bubble Buddy, who literally has, like, what, 2 lines?
2 lines
In the episode he appears, and they get that guy's voice actor, but Mr. Crab. It was like, as a kid, I was like, they got Bubble Buddy, but Mr. Krabs
Well,
sounds
Bubble Buddy
weird.
might be one of the guys that are already here. Like it could be Tom Kenny for all we know.
And, you
Good
know,
point.
this kind of thing is fine for a game like this. I don't necessarily mind it. That problem you brought up of them not making eye contact and stuff, though. You know what the first thing I thought of was the frickin' Ratchet and Clank reboot, where that kind of thing should never have been allowed to happen.
I don't know about
because-
you. Bubble Buddy had the best eye contact in that entire scene. he was staring right at SpongeBob.
Yeah.
You could tell. Yeah.
It's just
So this game, one thing I do think feels really good, which is very important in any platformer, but specifically in 3D ones.
Where
that
are
can-
you looking? Patrick, I'm over here. It's like, okay, we're not making eye contact. I get it, but he's like looking up and to the right.
He's
like
looking
he's
for his
seeing
socks.
something shiny.
Yeah,
he's looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah, so in terms of it's weird. This game is the game structure is kind of like your Banjo-Kazooie or Mario 64, but in terms of the level design, I think it's closer to Spyro, which we'll see when we get to I think we go to the first real level next time. But oh yeah, we you get a free sock for breaking Patrick's couch.
Yeah. I don't think the writing of the game in its entirety is on the same caliber as the cartoon show, but there are some things that do sneak up on me, like the golden turkey baster line that we just exchanged with Patrick.
A golden.
And SpongeBob corrects him with spatula, and he just says, "Bless you." You know, shit like that. Will catch me
Yeah.
off guard.
Mr. Krabs, your voice. What happened?
Why is he squinting all the time in this
I
game,
mean,
though?
he
I have
does
to
do
ask.
that a lot in the show too. Like the first episode,
It's-
there's the big scene where he's doing that big squinty thing.
Well,
so,
when his eyes are fully open, does the top eyelid disappear?
yeah, in the show it does. I think
It's probably because of that, because they would have to like vanish it and reappear it, and that's animation work that is probably above their budget for regular old cutscenes.
yeah. I think maybe it would have been a little bit better if maybe they made the bottom eyelid go all the way down to his face, but yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
Mr. Krabs is probably one of the easiest ways to get spatulas, which are this game's power stars or jiggies or talismans or whatever. If you bring shiny objects, which is the legitimate name for the collectible in this game, they're called shiny objects. If you bring them to him, you can just straight up buy spatulas. So if you're having
Oh.
trouble in any given level and you just want to get to the next one, you can just grind some of
Oh.
those and buy those.
That's where Sonic Boom got it. The shinies.
So, also, one of my favorite things about this game as well is if you look in the pause menu, every single mission has its own name. This one is called Annoy Squidward. And all you have to do is just jump up and down over and over, and then eventually
Like an idiot.
he'll give you a spatula. And also you
So
get a
this
sock
falls
for
on
free.
Annoy Squidward Day.
Oh, what was that?
Basically.
What day was that? Like March the 27th or something like that? And if you break all of his stuff, Patrick's sock is there as well? Okay.
They probably invade his house on a weekly basis.
Weekly.
Weekly. Probably. Well, I mean, it would be
Probably-
weekly.
Probably
'cause
almost daily.
They only have one day off a week, so it probably would be weekly, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Oh yeah, I should mention this will not be a 100% playthrough, and there's two big reasons for that. One is socks. A lot of them are annoying, so I don't want to bother. The other is Kelp Forest, and if you've played this game, you
Ugh.
know exactly why.
We'll need a park ranger to get us out if we kind of get everything.